David, hi Shane and James, hope you're both well. I've just reread Bob Holly's book. Definitely recommended if you haven't read it already. He put Shane over saying he thought he could have been one of the top guys because he was damn good. Bob then refers to it's the click. We pronounce it clique here, but I try and do the American version, click. Basically squashing any chance you ever had with the company. Bob does not even mention wrestling Shane in his book. Did they ever have a match? And does Shane have any Bob Holly related stories? Thank you for your time.
Yeah, he was one of the first guys that I remember, like looking at Bob Holly, the athlete, the person, and then watching the gimmick that was put on him that seemed like so, like, I don't know, a little bit cornbally or something, because he seemed like tough guy, good in the ring, and I remember thinking to myself, like, that's a shame because he has. He seems so much more legitimate than just that. And, in some ways you could argue that, that was, again, my naivete and looking at what Vince was doing with sports entertainment. Bob, we had a match, I want to say it was in Warren, Ohio, I believe. And, anytime you're in the ring, I think it was the first time we worked. And, there's a feeling out process, when you see the wrestlers, circling and doing, reaching in and, it looks a little bit like a dance at first, but really what each of us is doing is just, I'm watching foot placement and where the movement is. I'm sure he's doing the same thing. And we went at it pretty good. It wasn't like you're trying to best them, but by like pushing, you see him pushing back. And that's when those matches just sort of get into that groove and go on their own. At the end of that match, I had fed up for a clothesline, and he was coming off this clothesline, and just as I turned into it, he hit me in the throat. I hadn't gotten my body up high enough, and I was still coming up, and it actually had fractured my larynx, which is why my voice had gone sort of Johnny Ace for a while. It was and boy, I tell you, if anybody out there's ever damaged their trachea, it's an incredibly painful thing for the first couple days. Bob, to me, was like the guy that you'd walk into that dressing room and you'd see this a plethora of really tough guys, athletic guys that all had the same dream in this industry. And like, to me, I thought with Bob, like the same thing, like he said about me, the old Steve Austin thing. I wish Vince would have strapped a rocket to his ass, right, and see how far he could go. And unfortunately, the WWF has always been, and certainly was still then, a place where there were a half dozen guys figured in that were, sort of like the nucleus of the company's push, and everybody else was just sort of thrown in here and there and haphazardly. And I thought Bob had the ability, to go in there and be so much more. And this is, we're still at this point where the wrestling is going, splitting off of wrestling and going to sports entertainment someplace. And some of those guys, were a lot more visionary than I was as far as wanting to go or being willing to go that direction. I always wanted to stay to the wrestling side of it. And, but like Bob, much like George South had done earlier in NWA, showed that, like, stay there and, stay the course. You may never get to the level you want to get to, but you're gonna have a career for a good long while. And being on the Tough Enough series and all of that. It was first of all, thanks Bob for those kind words out there. And it's and the question, because Bob's one of those guys that I haven't seen in quite a while. Normally run into these into each other. No matter, like, for instance, last WrestleCast I said Conan for the first time in, I don't know, 6, 7, 8 years. But I haven't seen Bob for quite a while. Does he do many of these conventions? And
best I know, I've not seen anything public from him in years.
Yeah.
So I don't know if he's just completely divorced from the business or wherever he is. I don't know.
Yeah, interesting. I have to dig into that and find out.